Welcome back, everyone, to the Temple of Technology. I am your host, Scott James Magner, the idiot with a microphone, and it's time for another episode of So Here's the Deal, the Irish Entertainment webcast where I talk about my vast media collection with myself or my friends, the ins and outs of physical objects or digital that I own, and what they mean to me. Today, we're going to be talking about The Eternals, the 2021 MCU movie starring Salma Hayek, a whole bunch of other folks. We're talking about this right here, and let's get to it. Okay, so let's do a quick overview of The Eternals, or rather Eternals, because the title changed multiple times throughout production. Eventually, in 2021, after a bunch of delays, they decided to just go with Eternals. And a big portion of why that happened is because the originally this was going to be a TV show. This was going to be a TV show on ABC. And they decided, because of a bunch of stuff that was going on with Marvel, to do an Inhumans TV show instead. And Inhumans was supposed to be a movie. So they took the movie plot that they had for Inhumans, turned it into a TV show, and then they didn't really have a TV treatment that worked well for Eternals until Chloe Zhao came to them with a pitch. And her pitch was somewhat epic. She's a big fan of the MCU. She liked the characters. She liked Jack Kirby. And she came armed for bear. She had ideas for the treatment, and she worked with Nathan Moore, one of the producers for the MCU, really nailed down her pitch. And she did such an amazing job with her pitch. She had visual aids and manga references and science fiction references, and all these amazing locked in bits that they had to get her on the picture. They didn't want her to go do another huge budget film with another studio. So they locked her down. They made sure that they had her to do the Eternals, and they gave her essentially a blank check. They said, do whatever you have to do to get it done. We are watching my 4K Ultra Blu-ray and digital code version of Eternals. This disc came out, rather these discs, because there's two of them. These discs came out in February of 2022. That's when I got it. I got it the day it released. It was right there on my porch waiting for me. And I pre-ordered it pretty much immediately after seeing it in the theater. I love this movie a lot. I'm just get that out of the way right now. This movie is amazing. I think it's one of the best MCU offerings. And because it didn't do as well financially, people think it's a bomb. And also because it doesn't feature a bunch of white guys in capes. It has a very diverse cast. It was written by an Asian woman and Asian men. It directed by an Asian woman. It has characters of all sorts of ethnicity and accents and backgrounds. There's even a deaf actor in this movie who doesn't wear a cochlear implant. She doesn't even pretend that she can speak. She speaks in sign the entire time, and the rest of the characters just know what she's doing and what she's saying, and they speak back in sign. So I'll go more in that a bit in the impressions and Hispanic coverage, but The Eternals just blew me away when it came out, and it has problems. I won't lie. This movie was ambitious. It's probably the most ambitious movie since the original Thor or the original Captain America. So I'm going to go Wikipedia. We're going to go down some of the plot and some of the stuff going on around this. All right, the Wikipedia plot summary is as follows. And again, I use Wikipedia plot summaries for this because they are crowdsourced. They're not just my opinions. They're edited and curated and there's a lot of stuff going on. So, in 5000 BC, 10 superpowered beings known as Eternals, Ajax, Circe, Icarus, Kingo, Sprite, Phastos, Makkari, Druig, Gilgamesh, and Athena, are sent to Earth by Arishem, a celestial, on the starship Domo. They are charged with exterminating invasive entities known as the Deviants. After the last Deviants are killed in 1521, the group's opinions differ over their continued relationship with humankind. Over the next 500 years, they mostly live apart, waiting for Arishem's orders. In the present, Circe and Sprite live together in London. After Circe's partner Icarus left her without explanation centuries earlier, she is now in a relationship with human Dane Whitman, who works at the Natural History Museum. The trio is attacked by the deviant Crow. Icarus arrives and chases the creature away. The three Eternals travel to South Dakota to reunite with their leader Ajax, only to find her dead. Siri is posthumously chosen by Ajax as her successor, granting her the ability to communicate with Arishem. Circe learns that the Eternals' mission was to actually prepare Earth for the emergence of a new celestial. Arishem explains that for millions of years he has been planting celestial seeds inside planets, where the energy from large populations allows new celestials to be born. The Deviants were sent to destroy the apex predators of each planet, ensure the development of intelligent life. But when they evolved themselves and began hunting the planet's native populations, Arishem created the Eternals to counter them. With the recent end of the blip restoring Earth's population, humankind has reached the necessary size to allow the celestial Tiamat to be born, which will result in Earth's destruction. Hoping to delay the emergence, the Eternals reunite. At Druig's residence in the Amazon rainforest, they are attacked by the Deviants. They kill all of them except for Crow, who kills Gilgamesh before fleeing. Phastos proposes they use the Unimind, connection between all the Eternals, that would give Druig enough power to put Tiamat to sleep with his mind control abilities. However, Icarus is loyal to Arishem and refuses to help stop the emergence. He reveals that Ajax wanted to stop the emergence and save humanity, so he led her to the Deviants and allowed them to kill her. Sprite joins Icarus due to her unrequited love for him, while Kingo chooses to leave, agreeing with Icarus but not wanting to hurt his friends. Okay, I'm here. Makkari locates the place of the emergence, an active volcano in the Indian Ocean, where Icarus and Sprite attempt to stop them. Druig knocks out Sprite, and Phastos restrains Icarus. Ro arrives and is killed by Athena. Druig is unable to put Tiamat to sleep. Circe instead attempts to turn him to stone. Icarus breaks free of his restraints and goes to kill Circe, but is unable to due to his love for her. Both he and Sprite join with the others in the Unimind, and Circe gains enough power to turn Tiamat into stone. Guilt-ridden, Icarus flies into the sun. Circe uses the remaining Unimind energy to turn Sprite into a human, ending her permanent childlike state. Athena, Druig, and Makkari depart on the Domo to warn the Eternals on other planets of the emergencies. Whitman professes his love for Circe and is about to reveal a secret about his family history when she, Phastos, and Kingo are all lifted into space by Arishem. Displeased with their treason, Arishem says he will spare humanity if the Eternals' memories show that humans are worthy of living. He vows to return for judgment and takes the trio into a singularity. In a mid-credits scene, Athena, Makkari, and Druig meet the Eternal Eros and his assistant Pip the Troll. In a post-credits scene, an unseen person questions whether Whitman is ready to wield the ebony blade. So that's a lot. And this movie is 156 minutes long, and not a lot of that time is wasted. There is a ton going on in this movie. And that summary really only scratches the surface of everything that's going on. So, I mentioned that it was delayed. It was delayed several times. First off, because the pandemic delayed some of the Marvel TV shows, which meant that the rest of things needed to be pushed back. there were 5 Marvel movies in 2021 because of these delays. 3 of them were supposed to be in 2020. And so it would be Black Widow, Shang-Chi, and Eternals were supposed to be spring, summer, and fall 2020 releases. Spider-Man No Way Home was supposed to be a midsummer release, and Venom, Let There Be Carnage, was supposed to be a late summer release. But it's not an MCU movie, it's a Marvel movie. But they had spaced these things out as they went. And in between all of that, the rest of Phase 4 was television shows and specials on Disney Plus. So there's WandaVision, Hawkeye, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, and Werewolf by Night. They're all part of Marvel's Phase 4. So there's a lot of required reading you have to do to get all that stuff squared away. And you don't have those big theatrical release bets, as I talked about briefly in the Shang-Chi video, about some of the things that happened to Black Widow and Black Widow's release. I cover this extensively in my video, in my blog essay about Shang-Chi. You can read that at ScottJamesMagner.com. I'll put a link in the channels. And I also did one for the commentary for Eternals, so you can read that as well. It was a big deal when Black Widow didn't hit the financial success it should have because of its day-and-date release, both in theaters and on streaming. And then Shang-Chi didn't play in China because star Simu Liu, he was very critical of China, and his experiences living there and interacting with them. So it didn't hit the biggest movie market in the world that really, really likes superhero movies. So the Shang-Chi movie didn't make a ton of money. It made lots of money. It made $400+ million, right? Black Widow made $400+ million. And the Eternals ended up making $402 million. Because not only did it not play in China, because director Chloe Zhao was very outspoken that she believed China was just a country of lies. And you can't trust anything that China does. You can't interact with China. When you do so, you're feeding the beast. And the misinformation keeps going. Because she had said that and never walked it back, the Chinese market says, well, we're not going to show this movie. That's not going to happen. And that's half your box office right there is China. But then the Arab states in the Middle East wouldn't show the movie either because A, it had gay people. One of the Eternals is gay. He's in a same-sex relationship with an Arab. And they didn't like that one bit. They didn't like that there was a same-sex kiss. They didn't like that they had a relationship that was loving with raising children. And they especially didn't like that the Eternals themselves are treated like gods and proto-gods and depicted as such throughout human history. And they have a lot of rules against that sort of thing. So they didn't want to show the movie. And typically, Disney will get around this by making another cut of the movie for those markets. But this would have ended up being 3 or 4 or possibly even 5 different cuts, depending on how much you have to tone down the romance, because they don't like romance on screen either. There's a bunch of romance between Icarus and Cersei, which is entirely unnecessary to the movie, believe me. I'm going to talk about this extensively in the extended coverage. Not necessary. But they didn't want to cut it because American markets do like that sort of thing. And when you got pretty people like Richard Madsen and Gemma Chan, you want to show them being pretty. So a lot of people didn't see this movie in theaters. And this is where I die on the hill. This is where I fight forever to tell people how good this freaking movie is. This movie was the #1 streaming movie on Disney Plus in 2022. It blew everything else away. Everything else away. Millions and millions of people streamed this movie on Disney Plus, which is great money for Disney that goes directly into Disney's pockets. It doesn't go into the box office numbers, which a lot of these contracts are tied to. So it made a ton of money, which is never ever reflected in the box office, and it's never applied against the budget of the movie because this wasn't the theatrical release, and that's what the budget's about. This was a Disney Plus release where that's just streaming money after revenues, and the contracts are structured differently for that. In fact, there was a giant strike, you might remember, a couple of years ago because of movies like this, which were streaming, and the contracts were not written to recognize streaming revenue. So people who work on movies said, we're not working on movies. We're not going to do that until you fix our contracts to make sure that we get our residuals for streaming. And they won. They won big. I was working for Warner Brothers at the time, and nobody wanted to talk about this inside the company. But all of us knew that the strike was going to win. It was a thing that mattered. This movie matters. Eternals is one of the most impactful movies I've ever seen in my life. When I saw this movie in the theaters for the first time in November, in fact, it was November 5th when it first released, the pandemic is going on, right? I had to take an Uber to get there. And I went and I watched the movie with a mask on. I didn't eat anything in the theater, right? Because the pandemic is still going. It's been a year and a half of pandemic, and people were still not masking and still not taking care of themselves, still not trying to keep people like me who are immunocompromised from getting sick. So I watched this movie alone at a giant ass theater. And I couldn't get out of my chair afterwards. It blew me away. It's only happened with one other movie, and that was Batman Returns in 1990 something. 1992, I think Batman Returns was. I'll look it up later, not now, because we're talking about 2021. I couldn't get out of my chair. I was blown away. I was emotionally spent. And so once I finally collected myself and was able to go outside, I called up my partner Lindsay and says, you have to see this movie. This movie is the best thing I've seen in years. And she agreed to see the movie with me again that weekend. So I then went and got some dinner, went home. I tried not to tell her about the movie. I just said, what day works for you? And we picked a day, we picked a theater, and we went to see Eternals again. Why I bring up the experience of seeing this movie in the theater is because we're talking about my physical media collection, but also my media. And I posted from the theater that I was going to see Eternals. I posted a picture of an empty screen, an empty movie screen, much like the one in the background behind me, an empty movie screen. Nothing is on it, and said, watching the Eternals. And I got hit on Facebook. I got a copyright notice, copyright takedown. And then I started getting more and more and more. These things are spam. These things are against our terms and guidelines hits, to the point where they took down pictures of my fucking cats. And I spent a year fighting to get pictures of my cats back with Facebook. I eventually had to pull levers of people that I know who worked inside of Facebook to get my cat pictures back. And one of my cats died during that year. So I couldn't even look at her anymore, right? You want to talk about crying? That was a big fucking deal. I had pictures of my cat for 13 years that were just gone because the algorithm hated the fact that I had posted about watching this movie in a theater, from the theater. It was insane. It was madness. And when I got the movie here, I watched it immediately. I turned the commentary on. I watched the commentary immediately. I was still doing my commentary rewatches at the time. In fact, watching the commentary for this movie made me start doing the commentary rewatches, which eventually led to the big feature that I've got on my personal website, and, you know, some of what I'm doing here for now with So Here's the Deal. Being able to explore my physical media and share that information with the world is a big part of what we do here. And that's because of the Eternals. So I have a deep, long-standing relationship with this movie over the last 4 years. I am going to move on to the next section, my first impressions, which I've talked about briefly here, right? That I was blown away by the movie and I couldn't get out of my chair. But I'm gonna cry, and I don't want to do that on screen. I broke down crying doing Leave Their Own, and I'd like to spare you all that ridiculousness again. So let's move on to my first impressions. Oh no, wait, we don't do first impressions yet. We got to do the trailer. Or I'm gonna cry again. We're gonna look at the final trailer, the final release trailer that was cut in August of 2021 for the release. This is what really sealed the deal when I saw this trailer when I was watching Shang-Chi in the theaters. I saw this trailer for Eternals and I knew it was going to be a hit. Here we go. So this movie spent a year in post-production. They released a lot of trailers to try and keep things going, and it was often delayed because of the pandemic as well. So these trailers became more and more important as the weeks and months dragged on without an actual movie or press junket or anything like that. So this is the final trailer that was released in August of 2021 ahead of the October-November release.
Five years ago, Thanos erased half of the population of the universe. But the people of this planet brought everyone back with a snap of a finger. The sudden return of the population provided the necessary energy for the emergence to begin.
How long do we have?
7 days.
We're Eternals. We came here 7,000 years ago to protect humans from the deviants.
Why didn't you guys help fight Thanos? Or any war, all the other terrible things throughout history?
We were instructed not to interfere in any human conflicts unless deviants are involved.
By who?
We need to find the others.
I haven't seen some of them for centuries.
Hi.
Hello.
This is what the end of the world looks like. At least we have front row seats.
You know what's never saved the planet? Your sarcasm.
We have loved these people since the day we arrived. When you love something, you protect it.
You can't protect. Any of them.
I bet you've built the perfect safe house. I mean, what's this even made of? Vibranium?
Fall collection. IKEA.
There were a lot of other bits and bobs and some of the other trailers leading up to this, but that there cut all the fluff. It got straight down to the matter, and went from there. So let's go talk about my first impressions of this movie after I stop crying, because that trailer gets me every time. All right, I'm recovered. Mostly. Still got the, when you get that big, deep emotion feeling, like when the strings play and it just hits a nerve, right? And it hits your entire body. That's how I felt watching The Eternals. I saw it again that weekend. I saw it one more time in the theaters before the end of November 2021. And then, of course, I've watched it a number of times, both on home video, on Disney Plus. I have a digital copy. I have my own private media server where I archive my disc. I watch this movie a lot. One of those movies where if I see it's on, I'm just going to watch it, right? But I don't stop everything I'm doing to watch it the way I do with A League of Their Own, because it's 3 fucking hours long. And it is chock full of amazingly poignant and hard-hitting emotional beats. And nobody likes it. Nobody likes this movie because they think it was a failure. They think all the movies from 2021 were a failure, when actually they were really good. They were successful movies. But as I mentioned in the overview, this is a movie written by Asian people about not white people. And I see this a lot online, where people dump on anything that doesn't feature straight white males. Guess what? I'm a whitish male. I'm not straight. And this movie was made for me. This movie was made for everybody who's ever felt on the outside, unable to change things, unable to truly affect change in the world because of the rules. Now, the Eternals, they're functionally robots, right? They are constructed beings. They're not real humans, but they're made to act human. Or rather, humans become the way they are because they interact with the Eternals over 5,000 years. And that's a huge deal, like 7,000 years, actually. That's a huge deal to think about. These beings from another world, these 10 gods, and the names of them are a big deal, right? The names of the characters are essentially names from mythology. Makkari is Mercury. Gilgamesh is Gilgamesh. Athena is Athena. That's how humanity in the MCU viewed them, as godlike beings, and myths sprung up around them, which was fine for the Eternals because they didn't need to be worshipped as gods. They gained no power from being worshipped by gods like the Norse gods do, like Thor, right? Thor and Odin and the gods of Asgard, they connect with humans in Midgard and in all the 9 realms because they're essentially benevolent dictating overlords. And they have palaces made of solid gold because they take that gold from all the places they rule over and protect, right? They're the ultimate feudal lords. They just happen to be functionally immortal and immensely powerful. And the older they get, the more powerful they get. The Eternals don't have that situation. The Eternals are exactly the same at the time of this movie as they were at the time of the end of the movie as they were at the beginning of the movie. Only a couple of them get any kind of power up, but they're the same. They have nearly a limitless supply of energy to do a lot of stuff, but they're stagnant. They don't grow as people for a very long time. And in the 7 days you saw referenced in the trailer, they grow a great deal because they're finally taking action. They're finally doing something about the world. There is a very popular t-shirt that says, Magneto was right. And this comes from the Grant Morrison run of X-Men, where one of the characters, a super genius kid, amazing Omega-level mutant telepath named Quentin Quire, starts basically leaning into the fact that mutants are simply better than normal humans. We are evolved. We are better people than normal humans are. And you don't see us trying to kill each other the way that humans kill each other, or even try to kill us. And Magneto's point from X-Men #1 has been, humans want to exterminate us. I'm not going to let that happen. And over time, Magneto's personality was developed and shown that he was a Holocaust survivor, right? He had been through this intense othering already. His family had been murdered in camps. He had been nearly murdered in camps until his powers emerged and he was able to get out of it. And then in the 60s, 20 years removed from that, right, when he's essentially at the height of his powers, he's fighting the X-Men, but he's not wrong. And that's the point of this. Magneto was right. And a shirt came up that said Druig was right. Druig is the telepath character amongst the Eternals. He has mind control. And if he can see you, or if he's near you and can sense your brain, he can make you do whatever he wants you to do. He does this to thousands of people during the siege of Mexico City by conquistadors. I'm not going to say it was Tenochtitlan. It's the city that later became Mexico City, was being besieged by conquistadors and says, we have to stop this. And they said, no, we can't. We have to, Ajak, the leader, played by Salma Hayek, said, we cannot. Our job is to shepherd humanity and not to interfere. And Druig says, our job sucks. And this is the big split. The big split happens in the middle of the movie when Druig says, I'm not going to let these humans die. They trust us. They believe in us. They need us to survive because we have conditioned them. We treat them like pets. And without us, they won't eat. They won't drink. They won't do these things. And they said, no, we can't do that. It says, no, you can't do that. I will do it. He walks out and goes like this. And his eyes get all glowy. And the eyes of every single person in the valley that they're in get all glowy. They're mestizos or conquistadors or basic slaves. They all get up and they walk with Druig off into the Amazon, and nobody sees him for 300 years. Right? Because he says, screw this, I'm done. I'm not dealing with this shit anymore. We've killed all the deviants, and now we're just going to watch these humans kill each other, and I'm not doing it. So he leaves. He goes. Boom. He's out. And this split, this fundamental split of we can't interfere, and we also can't let them die, and the third viewpoint of we must interfere, drives the Eternals apart. These 10 people who spent thousands of years working towards a singular goal, protect humanity from deviants, they split apart and they go their separate ways, which is brought up in the overview and the Wikipedia plot summary I mentioned. But over those 10,000 years, the Eternals have all more or less paired off, right? Icarus and Circe share this amazing eye-bleeping moment in the opening minutes of the movie, and they're a horrible couple. They really are. They're not. The power dynamic is not equal between them. She loves humans. He tolerates them, and he essentially lies to her about who he is inside, so that he can be with her because he's fallen in love with her. And it's a lousy way to start a relationship, but their relationship lasts for 4,000 years, right? Because they don't grow. They're static. They're robots. And this split when Druig goes off happens because Ajak told Icarus what the plan was. Told him, hey, we're waiting for the emergence to happen. And we're going to leave this planet and we're going to go. She didn't tell anybody else. And it's even more relevant for Icarus's plotline when Circe later gets the Unimind from Ajak, because Circe was her favorite. And she didn't tell Circe either. And so Icarus was the closest one to Ajak, even though he had bonded with Circe. He doesn't get to be the leader. He doesn't get to be with Cersei anymore because he's carrying this terrible secret. And he doesn't get to go home either because the emergence never happens, and it never happens, and it never happens. As you saw in the trailer, when the snap happened, or the blink happened. So there's different ways to combat it. The snap is when Thanos destroyed half the universe. The blip is the amount of time between the snap and the return, when Hulk snaps the fingers to get everybody back. And then there's the last snap where Tony Stark sacrifices himself to rid their universe of the time-traveling, dimension-hopping Thanos from another thing. So Eternals happens days after Avengers Endgame, right? The world is still reeling from all the stuff that is going on. And yeah, the emergence is building up, and we're going to go. So the people that we see throughout this movie, half of them were gone for 5 years, and they're still trying to readjust and get used to their lives. But none of the Eternals did, because they're not real people. They're not humans. They're robots. They're constructs made by the Celestials to fulfill their grand design. Thena and Gilgamesh pair off very early on because they're fighters. And in the commentary track, Chloe Zhao talks about how the Eternals come in two flavors, fighters and thinkers. The fighters are the ones who are very physical and very frontline troops, right? And the thinkers are the ones who have support abilities, who are able to pick up the pieces afterwards. And the fighters are, as I recall, Icarus, Kingo, Gilgamesh, Thena, and Makkari. So, respectively, they are Superman. Kingo has, he can shoot power beams from his hands of various sizes and structures. Gilgamesh is a super strong being. He's effectively invulnerable, and he's big, punchy. Played. I'll tell you who they are too. All right, so Richard Madden is Icarus. Kumail Nanjiani, who was a stand-up comedian before he got this role, was Kingo. And in the universe of the Eternals, he disguises the fact that he is immortal and never aging by pretending to be his own children over and over. And he's a Bollywood star. So that's a neat, fun part about him, is that he's a Bollywood star. He's technically Kingo 4, the great-grandson of the original Kingo. And he has a documentarian, a human, his valet, as it were, who follows him around with a camera, basically recording his actual story rather than the one he fakes for everybody else, right? So Kingo doesn't want to rule humans. He wants to live amongst them, but he also wants to be recognized for who he is and what he did. He has his own motivation. Kingo is a fighter. Kingo's opposite is Sprite, who is, for some reason, they made 9 really sexy robots in really adult bodies who can sexy times each other, but Sprite is a little girl. She's just barely post-pubescent teen, and her job, her function, is to interact and relate with humans on their level as a storyteller. So she can cast illusions. So she is the counterpart to Kingo, who wants to tell stories and be stories. Sprite is the one who shows stories and makes things go on. Thena is played by Oscar winner Angelina Jolie, doing a Marvel movie where her knife-edge cheekbones are on immediate display. She is the ultimate warrior. Icarus is essentially Superman. Thena is essentially Wonder Woman. But they're not called that, because Jack Kirby couldn't call them that when he created the Eternals in 1976. By the way, we'll talk about Jack Kirby a lot more in the expanded coverage. But Tina can make any weapon, any armor. You saw in the trailer, she's got a big shield and a spear, and she's doing stuff with that. During this break in the 16th century, Tina gets overcome by something called the Maudry, which is essentially she is overcome by suppressed memories of other planets that they have gone to destroy so that Celestials can emerge. And usually their memories all get wiped, reset, and go on. Ajak is the only one who knows what's really going on. She's the leader, and because she's in constant contact with the Celestials. Or rather, in more frequent contact with the Celestials. But Thena is remembering going to another planet and destroying that planet. She's remembering it big time, and it's driving her insane. She can no longer tell friend from foe, and she ends up, as when all this madness is going on, chaos, the conquistadors coming in and killing people, she mistakes the conquistadors for the deviants and starts to lash out at everybody. And so she fights people left and right. And Ajax's power, she's one of the thinkers, is that she can heal people. And so she heals the wounds. She can't heal Thena. She can't. All she can do is what she's done numerous times before, take her back to their spaceship, stick her in cold storage, and wait to get called home. And because once they get called home, the Celestials can just wipe her mind, take those memories, put them somewhere else so they can look at them, and reset her for the next mission. Much like Westworld, right? Where they take the robots, they suffer any kind of damage, they go, they clean them up, they clean them out, and they reset their memories so that no bad thing ever happened to them, and push them back out for other people to screw up and kill or do whatever they want to again. Watch Westworld if you haven't watched it. It's a fucked up show, but it's an amazing show. It talks about what it means to be human, which is a big central theme here of the Eternals. More on that in our final thoughts. Druig is a telepath. He's one of the thinkers. Druig's counterpart, the one he pairs up with, is Makkari, who is a speedster, which is also super strong. But Makkari is the ultimate scout. She can find the deviants. She can lead the rest of the people to them. She can transport them faster than the spaceship can go. And the spaceship can go faster than light, right? But can't do that in the planet's atmosphere. So you've got a super speedster in Makkari. And she and Druig are a couple. They're a very visible couple from very early on in Babylon. You see them interacting, and he signs to her without mouthing the words, because without having to say the words, he just knows signs the way that she does, because he's a telepath. They don't even really need to sign to communicate, but they do it anyway, because sign is how she communicates with the humans. And he translates for her when the humans haven't learned sign, but in general, when Makkari interacts with the world, with several notable exceptions, which I'll get into here, she signs, and they are a couple. They are a very loving couple. They are the only healthy relationship amongst the Eternals. Now, Gilgamesh promises to stay with Thena and keep her sane, right? He will leave the group. So, because Thena can't hurt him. He's immortal and invulnerable and super strong. So even if, she attacks him with her weapons, he's not going to take the kind of damage that everybody else will. And he and Thena go live in the Australian outback for 300 or 400 years. We'll pick them up later on when deviants come back and they attack. Who else? Oh, Gilgamesh is played by Hong Kong action star Don Lee. He's an amazing actor. You should see him in pretty much everything. He is just such a good actor. And he is not Benedict Wong. If you thought that Don Lee and Benedict Wong were the same person, they are not. They are vastly different people with vastly different bodies of work. So please check out Don Lee. Check out Benedict Wong. We'll talk more about him when I cover Spider-Man No Way Home and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. The Leah McHugh is the actress who plays Bright, the eternally young robot. She wants to pair off with Icarus because she is emotionally 13 and she's in love with Superman. But she can't be with Superman because she was physically 13 as well. even though she's 7,000 years old. And there's a couple interactions that she has with the human, Dane Whitman, who is a Marvel character known as the Black Knight. He wields an ebony blade. Sometimes he rides a Pegasus, but other times he rides a robot horse. And he is an Avenger. He's an important person. But in this movie, he's a history professor. And he is dating Cersei, Gemma Chan, who we have previously seen in the MCU as one of the Kree soldiers in Captain Marvel. But, you know, she gets blowed up real good. And she's such a great actress that they had, hey, would you like to play this part? Where not only do you get to use your own accent and not have to wear a lot of makeup, but this is a recurring character and a really important character. What Cersei can do is transmute objects. She can transmute any inanimate object into any other inanimate object. And for 7,000 years, she's been saving people's lives and doing this sort of thing, or, you know, showing them how to do farming stuff. Well, part of what Phastos does. Brian Tyree Henry's character, the gay character I mentioned earlier, not only gay, but a gay black man, who is not, he's an ectomorph. And which one is the big one? He's a mesomorph. So he's a big guy, right? And so they make robots in all, these eternal robots in all shapes and sizes. And he's a big guy, and apparently he is gay. I don't think he's gay so much as that he developed a loving relationship with a human who happened to be a gay man, and they paired up that way. So he doesn't have an immediate analog, except for his immediate analog is Ajak. They're both thinkers, but they are the ones who keep humanity on track. There's scenes in Ancient Babylon where Phastos wants to make them steam engines. Like, look, this is within their capabilities. They can do this. They can make these steam engines, and they can power the entire society. And she says, it's a little early for engines. You know, what else have you got? Says, all right, here. This is a plow. This will help them farm better. And Ajak says, yeah, do that one. Do the plow. So this is this guy who can design starships, right? He has a period-appropriate steam engine, which, by the way, was a part of the ancient world. They had mechanical bulls that ran off steam. It's documented. You can look it up. Right? I'm not making this kind of shit up. But he helps them farm. He helps them to settle down and raise crops, because the master plan is grow the human population until there's enough life force on Earth that the Celestial can bust their way out of the planet and go roaming around the universe. And it sucks to be on Earth that day, but if you're a Celestial, what do you care? They're ants. They crawl upon a planet's face. They're not important to you. You're a Celestial. You're an immortal, super powerful god who can do whatever they want. And then these Eternals are the next step up from ants to you. They are your pets, the way that humans are the Eternals' pets, right? This is a lot to get across in 156 minutes, but guess what? They do it. They get it all down on paper. It's amazing how many of these relationships are just fully fleshed out with looks and glances and tiny bits of dialogue. But they don't have to just say, oh, they're all pairing off, and oh, they're all doing this, and oh, this, and oh, that. No, they just show it. Chloe Zhao shows you all of this stuff that happens. Now, the location shoot, most of this movie was filmed practically on location, meaning they used natural light, and they had to decide what sets to build in locations versus what sets they would recreate in studios to do VFX shots. And the VFX shots took a long, long time to do as well. So, I don't want to lose the thought. I don't want to pause and come back to it. So give me just a moment to get the word back. Right. In these 156 minutes, there's about 9 wasted ones. And they're pretty much Icarus having man pain. Icarus is a whiny baby man. He sucks. He is also Superman. So if you can fly and you're super strong and invulnerable and can shoot lasers out of your eyes and you've got man pain, people just kind of do what you want. This is brought up famously in the TV show The Boys, right, where their Superman analog called the Homelander is a literal fascist who dates a literal Nazi. That's not Icarus per se, but he is also kind of a might makes right kind of guy, and he has this horrible secret who he knows what's going to happen to the earth and all the people, so he just leaves his wife, his actual wife, they're married, he just leaves her and wanders the earth for 400 years, 500 years almost. And then when he comes back, she's moved on. You're gone for 500 years, dude. I have this human now. It's the thing that I want. And she's planning on telling the human who she is and what's going on. But it's not on the agenda directly. So Icarus shows up to talk to Cersei and Sprite, for that matter, and Dane Whitman, when deviants attack them in London. Deviants attack them in London because he fades Ajax to the deviants. When Ajax tells him, I want to stop the emergence, or at least slow the emergence down, so we can find a way to save all these humans, because humans are important. They're really important. And Ajax's response is, I have to show you something. And he shows her a nest of deviants which have been uncovered by melting ice floes way up north in Canada. She's in North Dakota. He takes her up to Canada, shows her permafrost glacial ice melt. There's deviants run around down there and says, yeah, well, this is happening, right? I'm not sure our job is done yet, but what does it matter? Everything we did was meaningless. She goes, no, it's not meaningless. Everything that we did matters. Everything we did for the humans matters. And his response is, but you don't believe in the plan. You want to betray the Celestials. And she says, what? You're not on board with the plan. And he pushes her off a fucking cliff. And so Ajax falls to what would have been the death of anybody else, except for, she's an immortal robot, kills herself, and she's looking at all these deviants coming to get her. And the head deviant, named Crow, who we've brought up, basically kills her, sucks her power out of her, and becomes her in every way that matters. Except that she doesn't look like her. She's not pretty like Salma Hayek. Of course, who is? Nobody's as pretty as Salma Hayek. She's a goddess among our normal humans. But Crow gets Ajax's power, the power to heal. But he also gets all of Ajax's memories, which means he knows where all the other Eternals are. And guess what? He's hungry. He goes to kill Sprite and Cersei. Because what else are we going to do, right? Because he also knows now what's inside the Earth. It's the Celestials. And he doesn't care if that happens. Good for them. I want to stick to the Celestials. I want to kill as many Celestials as possible, and the Eternals. You've been slaughtered my kind for not only the 7,000 years here on this planet, but for tens of millions of years on other planets, which are all in Ajax memories. So Icarus, because he's a whiny man baby, is the villain. Not the deviants, not the Celestials. Icarus and his man pain are the villains of this piece. And that ain't nothing. So Icarus and his man pain then proceed to gather all the other Eternals up and pretend that he's their friend and pretend that some important things are going on. When all the time he's just he's trying to keep them busy until the Celestial busts out of the earth. So he's a bad guy. I don't like him. And I certainly don't like his relationship with Cersei. Now, I'm not Cersei. I'm not in love with Richard Madden. I could be. He's a beautiful guy. But I don't have that history. I haven't spent 7,000 years with this guy, right? Or 6,500 years with this guy. I don't have that kind of a deep emotional construction for that. I have 156 minutes, and I hate him for 145 of them. I just do. So when he fucks off into the sun, I cheered. I clapped my hands, and I was so happy because he couldn't kill Cersei in the end, and then he betrays all of his own principles he has killed for. He tried to kill all of his friends. He did kill his mom, Ajax. He was going to kill everybody on Earth to make sure that the Celestial was born so that he could just go home and get his memories erased so he could forget about everything he'd done. He chooses not to have his memories erased. He chooses to fly into the sun and supposedly burn him up. But you know what? I don't think it works. I don't. We just see him flying off into the sun. We don't see him dying. We don't see him being destroyed. So he and his man painter are out there burning in the heart of the sun, for all we know. I don't give a shit. He's a jerk. Druig was right. If you can help people, you should help people. And that's a final thought 5 sections early. We'll talk about it more later on. So those are my first impressions for Eternals. I just did 30 minutes of first impressions, which is the length of one of these videos normally, but and I still have more to talk about. This movie matters that much. So let's move on to our expanded coverage of the Eternals. Okay. I mentioned earlier on in the video, make sure I'm actually recording. Yes, I am. I mentioned earlier on in the video that the movie was not a financial success in theaters. Worldwide, it made $402 million, right? But it started streaming on Disney Plus in January of 2022. Where you could watch the theatrical version or an IMAX enhanced version, which are big deals, right? This disc doesn't have that IMAX version on it. And I think it's one of the few flaws of this release is it doesn't have the IMAX. But you can watch it on Disney Plus. It's there for you to get through. And I did watch it in IMAX. It was amazing. Blew me out of the back of my chair. But it is in 4K, and I really like that. On the disc, there's audio commentary, deleted scenes, a gag reel, and a bunch of behind-the-scenes featurettes, all of which are also available on Disney Plus. So if you have Disney Plus, you can get this experience, the same one that I did, and I devoured all of those special features again this week, or rather a couple weeks ago when I watched it. So it took me 3 weeks to get my thoughts together, to write up my long-form essay for the website, and to prepare for this video because I just wanted to get it right. So when this movie came out, it started 10 weeks after theatrical release. It started release digital copies. So that was in January of 2022. On iTunes, it was the number 4 of all things on iTunes. Right? iTunes sells a lot of stuff. The Eternals movie was number 4 in all the transactions data. Google, it was number 5. Voodoo, which ranks, also sells digital copies, had it at number 3, right, for both rentals and sales. When the disc came out, it was number 1 of every disc sold in the world. Number 1. It's madness. It was the best-selling Blu-ray and the best-selling disc of any kind. Blu-ray was 67% of all of its week sales, so 37 of it was normal Blu-ray, and 30% of it was this one I've got here, the 4K Ultra. It remained the number 1 best-selling DVD and Blu-ray for most of February. It was the number 4 rental on Redbox, and over time, in the first 5 days in Disney, it was watched by 2 million US household. Household is typically 3 people, right? So 6 million people there. And starting in January and moving on, in 2022, 4.3 billion minutes of Marvel TV, specifically the Eternals. 4.2 billion minutes. Now, think about this. Think about how many millions that is. How many millions of views. Let's just do the math here. The movie is 156 minutes long. So if we take 4.236 billion, divide it by 156, you get, yeah, That's a lot. 27 million times. 27 million times this movie was watched on Disney Plus. 27 million times. That doesn't sound like a failure to me. That's a runaway success. That is one of the best successful movies ever. 27 million household views, right? And this is for households too. So unlike going to the theater where one person buys one ticket and watches one movie, at home, the whole family can watch the movie. And that could be anywhere from one person to 10 people, right? So you split the difference at 3. 27 million times 3, that is 80 million people saw this movie, right? That's a third to a quarter to a third of the population of the United States. It's a whole country, Canada, right? It is madness how big this movie hit, right? And it even did well in the theaters. In the first week it was out, it was 162 million globally. And it was the second largest opening weekend during pandemic, and like 14 million of that was IMAX, which is just running up the score, right? And it got bombed by reviews because of the things I've mentioned before. It wasn't about straight white guys. It was uppity. It dealt with feelings, right? And most audience members gave it a positive score, 78%. 60% said they would recommend it. It's got a weighted average of 52 out of 100 based on 62 critics, because some critics hate it. Guess which ones? Some critics loved it. Guess which ones? And it put a stain on careers, right? Zhao put together a movie unlike anything I'd ever seen. Absolutely unlike anything I've ever seen. And she just came off of doing Nomadland, her independent film, for which she won Best Director and Best Picture, right? She knew what the hell she was doing when she made this movie. She learned about digital filmmaking so that she could make better Marvel movies. And she just learned so much stuff, right? The list of awards that this thing got are insane. Absolutely insane. And a sequel is greenlit. Everyone wanted to do stuff. But then last year, when Phase 4 and Phase 5 effectively imploded the Marvel Universe, Feige says there were no plans for a sequel to the Eternals, right? I'm really hoping that some of these characters come back in Avengers Doomsday and Avengers, the 2 new Avengers movies, Avengers Doomsday and Avengers One After Doomsday. Secret Wars. But that's not all there is to say about this movie. It's not. Because there's a really, really important thing that happens in this movie. I mentioned the love story of Makkari and Druig. And other than some people just pairing off because they seem to fit together, these two characters genuinely love each other. And this is Lauren Ridloff, who's a stage actor, and Barry Keoghan, who is an Irish movie actor. He, believe it or not, played the Joker in the Robert Pattinson Batman movie. You just never get to see all of his face. He was behind the door. And he's done a lot of really cool stuff. But Lauren Ridloff's a stage actor, and she is deaf. She's been deaf her entire life. And she learned to act by sign all the way through, and chose very early in life to be nonverbal. It mattered to her that her deafness wasn't a disability. It was a strength. It was who she was. It was a part of her being, and she didn't want to speak because that would distract from her deafness and her silence. So she learned to sign, and when she took a gig, she would teach people to sign so they would interact with her signing. She could read lips. Most deaf people can, but not all can, right? I've met people, I worked with deaf people who didn't read lips. They had transcription services or people to sign for them to interact in meetings and on sites. And that's good. That's important stuff. That's how Lauren Ridloff did. She taught people in the cast to sign. Eric Keoghan's one of the people who picked it up really fast. And almost all the characters interact with Makkari, the Eternal, via sign. It doesn't make any sense to have a deaf robot. It doesn't. She's so good at it that you don't care. She's amazing at it. And there is a moment in this movie. Here it comes. Here comes the... Not gonna cry. Icarus has his Harington, his heel turn. Lost a word. Icarus has his heel turn, and he's fighting the rest of the Eternals. And some of them, like Phastos, just start giving right back. I've been waiting to do this for 1,000 years, right? You think you're so good you can fly above us? I'm better than you are. And he just chains him down and slams him to the ground, and all these things going on. And while this fight is going on, Icarus picks up Druig and throws him through a fucking mountain, right? It's just, he's not screwing around anymore because for a moment, Druig was able to use his power on Icarus to calm him down. Icarus shakes it off, says, nope, can't have that. And remember, at this point, the plan was for Druig to put the Celestial Tiamat to sleep using all the extra power from the Unimind that Cersei was going to channel for them. And Icarus, in his one bit of tactical brilliance, says, yep, Druig has to go. Because once again, Druig is right. Throws him through a damn mountain. And in that moment is the single most real thing that I have ever seen on a movie. Lauren Ridloff and Makkari scream. It is this heart-wrenching, raw energy. She screams. And then the CGI kicks in. And so the speedster of Makkari, who's so much faster than Icarus, just grabs him and starts slamming him into mountains and pushing his face against things and running at super speed, right, to damage him. And whenever he gets loose, she runs around him some more to take all the air out so he can't fly. And she is beating the living crap out of him. She is going to kill him because he just threw Druig through a mountain. At which point, the deviant that Icarus has empowered washes themselves up on shore, having at this point devoured Ajak and Gilgamesh. So he's got all their powers. And he starts fighting everyone too. So Icarus has to fight Makkari, Thena, and Crow the Deviant all at the same time. And in the middle of that fight, Thena goes, says, no, I have to do this. I have to fight that Deviant. And Phastos says, how can you do this? How can you help Icarus? It's like, I'm not helping Icarus. I have a job to do, and it's to kill deviants. So she follows the deviant into the cave and starts beating crap out of it. It's revealed to her then that Ajak and Gilgamesh are still inside this deviant. And so she's going to give up. She's going to join them to be with the people she loves. Because the line you saw in the trailer, when you love something, you fight to protect it. And the deviant says, but you can't fight. You can't protect yourself. And she eventually, the power of love, pulls her back to do all this, while Makkari, having been beat all to hell outside, is still fighting Icarus, who then tries to go and kill Cersei some more, right? It's amazing how thick and raw and intense the emotions that these actors, all amazing actors, could bring to CGI super fights. And normally, CGI fights in movies just put me to sleep. They're boring. And because I can I know they're not real. I can check out. I was like, that's not real. I don't have to watch that anymore. Wake me up when people are acting again. No, I am there for every single second of Makkari's fight with Icarus and all the other stuff that's going on this celestial island that comes up. And I'll tell you, the clip I watch most often, all the time, is Makkari screaming and then beating the crap out of Icarus, because it's so satisfying. Watch his whiny baby man pain get the shit kicked out of him by a little girl, or rather a thin woman, not with a disability, but with a hearing disadvantage, maybe. Although she wouldn't call it a disadvantage, much like, my hearing loss. It's just who I am. I'm used to it. You adapt. She is adapted amazingly well to life in a world who can both hear and speak. And so, knowing that she had made that choice to be nonverbal, I was willing to break that choice because of the emotional resonance of this scene. I will watch absolutely anything Lauren Ridloff is in. I will, forever. She is selfless. She's an amazing actor. And spoilers, her character lives. She and Druig and Thena get on the spaceship, go off into space to find other Eternals, and they get to have a happy ever after, right? It's great. It's fantastic. And that's where that mid-credit scene that I mentioned earlier comes in, where Harry Styles and Patton Oswalt show up to talk to them about stuff. They're going to have continuing adventures, and I hope that the five of them make it into these new Avengers movies, because they're amazing characters with amazing through lines and growth and spirit. In fact, I mentioned that up until the 7 days that this movie is supposed to cover, the Eternals are static over 7,000 years. And everyone grows except for Icarus and Kingo. But Kingo gets more in power, and he is willing to admit the fact that he loves humans, even though he's not going to protect them from Tiamat. They all grow. They all become better people, and Sprite physically transforms into a human with the last of Cersei's Unimind power. And what's going on here? What's happened with the giant space god that emerged from the Indian Ocean and was destroying the Earth at that exact moment? You can see its giant space god head, its giant space god hand, just sitting out of the ocean. And she turns it into, it says turns it into stone, but really she turns it into crazy calcified celestial corpse. And in the Guardians of the Galaxy movie, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, you see that the set piece of nowhere is the hollowed out head of a dead celestial, where space pirates and others are mining celestial parts because they're the most valuable things in the universe, other than Infinity Stones, which you can also find at least 2 of on Nowhere, which we've covered in other videos. So now there's one of those on Earth, and as it turns out, they reference the giant dude coming out of the Indian Ocean in the Spider-Man movie, in the Venom movie, and they definitely mentioned She-Hulk, what's going on. But it's a major, major plot point in one of this year's 2025's MCU movies, Captain America and at Brave New World, where Thunderbolt Ross, played now by Harrison Ford, is basically asserting eminent domain over the celestial corpse, which has a material in it known as adamantium, the hardest substance known in the universe. We may have heard of adamantium before because of the X-Men movies, and guess what? This is how you get the X-Men back into the Marvel universe. We'll talk about Deadpool later on down the ride too, but Eternals has long-lasting repercussions in the MCU. It really does tie in well both to the movies that came before. As it's explained, we couldn't interfere because the Deviants were part of this. But Eternals is not possible without the snap, without Thanos and humans rejoining that. They just would have let the universe die, the planet die, and gone home. Instead, Ajak believed that humans were important, because humans are important. Humans can do amazing things. And moving onwards, the character of Kingo has appeared in the What If cartoon as Kingo. And they talk about Celestials a bunch of times throughout that series as they go around. So for a throwaway movie that people try to believe sucks, The Eternals was amazing. It was for me, one of the real high points of Phase 4. Again, we're going to talk about Spider-Man and Doctor Strange in another video, but the Eternals really, really matter. Representation matters. Diversity matters. Showing people with flaws who can just accept them and move onwards, and to show that love is the only valid response to things. That's all here in this movie. Chloe Zhao did an amazing job, and like Lauren Ridloff, I'll watch pretty much anything Chloe Zhao does. I'll definitely listen to her do other commentary tracks, because I loved her commentary track on this. You could read my essay at scotchsmiter.com about this very topic. But that's the expanded universe and where things go. For 20 minutes of your time, thank you very much. But now let's move on to my final thoughts. Okay, so here's the deal. In fact, so here's the deal. I love this movie. I think this movie is an amazing piece of filmmaking, and people say that it sucks. I want to punch them. And I'm a non-violent man. I don't like violence. I watch a bunch of action movies, right? But I am not typically moved to violence myself, even though I am frequently outraged at almost everything that goes on planet Earth, especially here in my country. My country's on fire. The world is on fire. And people want to tell me that a movie about hope and love and representation sucks because it didn't make $1 billion. But it did. It did make $1 billion. It made $1 billion for Disney, not for movie theaters, not for the actors, not for the directors. Disney made so much money off the Eternals in 2022. And they never, ever want to tell you how much. They certainly settled a strike because of how much money this movie made. And it also has to deal with other representation. I talk a lot about creators' rights. In fact, I did a making of behind-the-scenes video for this video earlier this day. I talk about my love for creators' rights. We need to talk about Jack Kirby. Jack Kirby invented the Marvel Universe. Jack Kirby invented Captain America. Think about this. Jack Kirby invented Captain America. Jack Kirby drew Captain America punching Hitler in the face, which is an iconic image that you've seen all over the place. Jack Kirby drew the cover to Amazing Fantasy number 15, which is the first appearance of Spider-Man. Jack Kirby invented the X-Men alongside Stan Lee. He's the original penciler for almost all of that. The Fantastic Four, the Incredible Hulk. Groot is a Jack Kirby creation. The Eternals themselves, 1976. But he worked in DC for a while, worked all the way through there. But Jack Kirby has been was fighting for recognition for his work and his efforts almost his entire life. He never got proper credit or compensation for his creations, ever. And his heirs are the reason why you see blank originally created by X in every superhero movie now. In fact, most movies that are dealing with managed IPs, because he was suing Disney for a long time to make sure that he got his rights and propers all the way through there. And after he died in 1986, his family kept the charge up until they finally won. And they got a settlement. And part of that settlement was you got to have these bits created by blank in all these movies. And that is the ultimate in representation. Creators' rights are important. Representation is important. Give people credit where credit is due. I have had my work stolen from me by corporations. I've had my work erased with the stroke of a pen when my name was removed from the credits on things. And it stings. It stings a lot. I can't do anything about it. But it happened. Jack Kirby had his entire life stolen from him. 50 years of his creations stolen from him. That is pain I can't even imagine. And it's been 5 years for me. Imagine 50, festering with that for 50 years, right? And he had a fantastic career. He invented the romance comic, right? Not only invented superheroes, but he actually invented romance comics. And you got to check out Jack Kirby. You really do. I'm going to drop a link in the comments here, a chapter in about Jack Kirby. I certainly go over it in my blog essay about it, but he's one of the most important creators of the 20th century. And he didn't make it to see the 21st, and he never got to see the Eternals take form and be on screen as magnificently as it was. Chloe Zhao credits Jack Kirby in the opening seconds of the commentary track for this movie, which is another reason I will love her forever and watch whatever she does. Go watch this movie, please. Go watch this movie. Watch it on Disney Plus. Buy your own copy. I mean, it's been 4 years now, right? Buy your own copy. They're cheap. But watch this movie. Turn the commentary on. Turn the subtitles on. Watch all the featurettes. Experience this movie any way you can. Oh, this is a neat bit. I cover this in my blog essay, but during the very long post-production period, they were making cuts to this movie up until July of 2021. VFX cuts, even though it was done. Since they kept pushing the movie back, they kept doing more VFX work all the way through there to get it done. And when they would show effects and reels to people, they made sure that whenever it was shown, it was projected. It was projected on a big screen, not on a tiny screen, not even monitors, big monitors like I've got in front of me here. It was projected onto a big screen so that you could see all the detail, all the impact, all the emotion that was going on in all of these scenes. These guys are amazing, and the supervisors who are on the. It takes a team, right? Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people worked on this movie. You can see them all in the credits. Stay to watch credits, by the way, for Marvel movies. Not just because you'll get 30 seconds of this scene or that scene, but stay there to acknowledge the work that these people did. I have friends of mine, science fiction authors, who were digital effects supervisors, who worked on Babylon 5, who worked on Marvel movies, who worked on Disney movies, right? When I see their names in the credits, I feel joy. I feel amazing because they're getting credit for the work that they've done. Much like Jack Kirby should take as much credit as possible in the afterlife or wherever it happened to Jack Kirby after he died for the work he did here in the Eternals. And that's it. That's my final thoughts. Thank you very much for bearing with me. I know we've gone almost 2 hours talking about one movie. It's the longest So Here's the Deal I've ever done. I don't think I'll do another one this important for a very long time. But please like and subscribe our channel and this podcast. And check out my website, scottjamesmatter.com, where there's additional coverage for both this movie and Shang-Chi and other movies in the MCU, other things that are important to me. And if you want to support the stream, Instead of, I don't put a tip jar out, right? I don't monetize these streams. I don't own I don't own this content. I own this content, and that's what I choose to monetize. So I'm a science fiction author and a game designer. Why don't you buy some books? And here's how you can do just that. Thank you for watching this video. If you'd like to support the stream, please like and subscribe on whatever platform you happen to watch it. But also, consider buying some books. ArtistEntertainment.com is a progressive publisher that focuses on independent authors and the stories that they tell. We have a curated selection of novels in science fiction, fantasy, high fantasy, space opera, horror, just about any genre that we believe needs some support, and the authors that need to do so as well. You can find this website by using this QR code or by typing artistentertainment.com into your browser and head over to our shop where you can get a free book written by me, Scott James Magner, called Homefront. Homefront is my 2014 science fiction novel, which I've later expanded into the Homefront trilogy of Invasion, Landfall, and Beachhead. But to get a sample, just go here, select the ebook, and you see it's $0. Free book delivered to you, your email. All you have to do is sign up for our mailing. That's it. That's all you need to do. Thank you very much for supporting us here at the Idiot with a Microphone channel, and we'll see you soon.